W. Smith. I want to share this video with you, and I want to share something that I found while looking around, right? I want you to listen to this, right? This, and I know this video is old. It was back when Mitt Romney first went to run like 5 years ago. Just check this out, though.
Color of skin. In 1954, the U.S. Supreme Court, Brown versus Board of Education, desegregated all our public schools. In 1964, civil rights laws giving full equality to black Americans. And yet it wasn't until 1978 that the Mormon Church decided to allow blacks to participate fully. Here's the headlines in the papers in June of '78. Mormon Church dissolved black bias. Citing new revelation from God, the president of the Mormon Church decreed for the first time black males could fully participate.
And something I've noticed, whenever they say God decreed it or told them that they needed a change, or that God has now changed his mind, I've noticed that it always follows after the government steps in and says, you need to stop this, whether it be polygamy, whether it be what was the other thing, the pedophilia, things like that. It was the years that the government cracks in and says, hey, if you don't stop, we're gonna take away your tax breaks, and you're gonna start paying in these taxes that you've been skipping out on. You've been able to loophole your way through. That's all of a sudden, it's like, now God changed his mind the following year. Whenever the pressure from the government was turned on, because they're big business.
Faith in church rights. You were 31 years old, and your church was excluding blacks from full participation. Didn't you think, what am I doing part of an organization that is viewed by many as a racist organization?
I'm very proud of my faith and the faith of my fathers, and I certainly believe that it is a faith, well, it's true, and I love my faith, and I'm not going to distance myself in any way from my faith. But you can see what I believed and what my family believed by looking at our lives. My dad marched with Martin Luther King. My mom was a tireless crusader for civil rights. You may recall that my dad walked out of the Republican convention in 1964 in San Francisco, in part because Barry Goldwater, in his speech, gave my dad the impression that he was someone who was going to be weak on civil rights. So my dad's reputation, my mom's, and my own has always been one of reaching out to people and not discriminating based upon race or anything else. And so those are my fundamental core beliefs. And I was anxious to see a change in my church. I can remember when I heard about the change being made. I was driving home from, I think it was law school, but I was driving home, going to the Fresh Pond Rotary in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
I can't help but think that that argument is kind of weak, that he bases it, that his dad marched, with Martin. I often wonder how many other people were involved in the march that did not, agree with them. I mean, look at what's his name there? That Reverend Jesse Jackson, right? He marched with him, but we know what his involvement was in Martin Luther King's life. I mean, yeah, he gets to be at a bypass from the black community. They still love him, and all that. But we know he was in on the assassination.
I heard it on the radio, and I pulled over.
And I'm not saying his dad was, but I'm saying just because you marched with him doesn't mean you were, behind him. You need more than just that to prove that his case, or what he's trying to say, that he had no prejudices.
And literally wept. Even to this day, it's emotional. And so it's very deep and fundamental in my life and my most core beliefs that all people are children of God. My faith has always told me that. My faith has also always told me.
See, and that's a lie, that they're all the children of God. That's a bold-faced lie. They have not always told them that. And we'll get into it if it doesn't in this video.
That in the eyes of God, every individual was merited the fullest degree of happiness in the hereafter. And I had no question in my mind that African Americans and blacks generally would have every right and every benefit in the hereafter that anyone else had, and that God is no respecter of persons.
But it was wrong for your faith to exclude him for as long as it did.
I told you exactly where I stand. My view is that there's no discrimination in the eyes of God, and I could not have been more pleased than to see the change that occurred.
Let me talk.
Okay, let me see. There's another one here. Hold on.
We produced a piece of animation to show you what Mormon theology is really all about.
Mormonism teaches that trillions of planets scattered throughout the cosmos are ruled by countless gods who once were human like us. They say that long ago on one of these planets, to an unidentified god and one of his goddess wives, a spirit child named Elohim was conceived. This spirit child was later born to human parents who gave him a physical body. Through obedience to Mormon teaching and death and resurrection, he proved himself worthy and was elevated to godhood as his father before him. Mormons believe that Elohim is their heavenly father and that he lives with his many goddess wives on a planet near a mysterious star called Kora. Here, the God of Mormonism and his wives, through endless celestial sex, produced billions of spirit children to decide their destiny.
Hold on, this is the one I was looking for. Sorry about that, everyone. Sorry about that.
Church policy had it that blacks had the mark of Cain.
And have you ever stopped and wondered why is it that they chose the mark of Cain, but yet they still also bring up Ham and how they're the descendants of Ham? I mean, I've looked into it, and I know they try to tell you that, you know, it starts with Cain. Cain marries his sister, which I think it's a lie, because I go back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. The Creator makes man, male and female, more than just one. He tells them to go and multiply. Then in chapter 2, he creates the garden and puts a male and a female in there, you know, or extracts the female from the male that he puts in there, and things go from there. And that's the reason why Cain was afraid that other people would eventually kill him. He didn't marry his sister. He picked a wife from the people that the Creator created back in Genesis 1 and 27. That's my opinion. But I know what they try to teach you, that Cain married his sister. His sister was the only Negro woman with him that got on the ark, while everybody else was Caucasian. They were the only ones that stood out like a sore thumb, you know. Plus, that they were the only. His wife was the only one that still had the fallen angel blood in her, you know. And from there you got I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. It was Cain and from Cain and his sister that he married. That the wife of Ham, Noah's son Ham, was descendants of Cain and Cain's sister, and they had the fallen angel blood in them through Cain and Cain's sister, who is now his wife, and their offsprings on down the line. And that's how the Nephilim blood still passed through the ark. That's how Cain's blood still passed through the ark, all through Ham's wife. And she's the only black woman on the boat, or Negro on the boat. And then on the other side, they're still producing, you know, I mean, to me, it's a more complicated story than actually looking at what the Bible clearly says, or, you know, the book of Genesis clearly says, but whatever. I just think it's interesting how they want to stick to that Cain, you know, Ham, you know, make sure that everybody else is clear and perfect. But this line right here, this line somehow always stays cursed in their stories.
Look, that's behind us. Don't worry about those little flicks of history.
Don't worry about history. That's all behind us. Well, you know, we always tell us if we don't learn from history, history repeats itself. If we don't learn that we profaned the Creator's name wherever we went, and He allowed us to be enslaved. In the book of Lamentation, He took away His mercy, His power, His protection, everything that He gave us, He took it away. And He said, hey, all these other nations that come from afar, all these other nations that are in the north, go ahead. They're yours for the taking. We suffered every last bit of this, all because we were not all because, but the biggest reasons was because we were blaspheming His holy name. If we don't correct that, come on. I mean, we're gonna go through it again. We're gonna be destroyed again, or we won't even make it. Not saying I'm saying that he will find those that will get it right. But if we're still blaspheming his name, if we're still calling on other gods, when we're not calling on his name, you know what I'm saying? If we're not correcting that issue. If he says, I did this to you because you profaned my name. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. You don't know how else to look at it. We're not gonna. Those that don't correct themselves are not gonna be the ones that make it. We can't make it if we're calling on him something else. It's like, I mean, we've all been there. We know what he's talking about. Think about it if you're being intimate with a partner, right? And your partner looks up, and let's say it's a she, and she calls you, I don't know, Jerome, and your name is Willis. You're gonna flip out. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing? Think about it. You know what I'm saying? You're with your woman, and you're calling her Samantha, and her name is Linda or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like, just that's all. That's a small version, but just think about it, all right?
Governor Mitt Romney wants to be the next president of the United States. The president is supposed to be the servant of the people, all people of the United States. White, brown, yellow, red, and black. But in the case of Mitt Romney, there may be a problem. Mitt Romney is a Mormon, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, headquartered in Salt Lake City, Utah, with over 13 million members worldwide. There are about 6 million Mormons in the United States. Mitt Romney served as a missionary for the Mormon Church in France in the early 1960s. Later, Romney served as a Mormon bishop, like the volunteer pastor over a congregation of about 200 people in Boston, Massachusetts. Until Mitt Romney was 30 years old, the Mormon Church banned all black people from its priesthood and its temples. This priesthood ban began in 1848 and continued until June 8th.
And you hear that? It began in 1848, and that's where this other book is called Mormon Religion and Coons. All right, explain that the Indians, all right, were Negroes in this book, okay, and it says that the reason the Mormons, quote unquote, were calling them coons is because the Negroes like to eat raccoons. All right, I don't know how true that is. I don't know of anybody except for some weird people that rednecks that eat raccoons, whatever. And this book also explains that it was easy for the Indians to adopt these traditions, these black Indians to adopt the Mormon customs, because the Mormons were stealing so much and putting it in their religion and saying, this is, this is your history. This is what you guys always have done. This is what you practice. Since you were cut off from it, since you've been up here in the Great Lakes region area, you were in exile from your Holy Land. That's the only reason why you don't know your traditions and customs the way you should. We're in contact with people over in Europe that practice and know your traditions, and that's how we're able to present this to you. But in that book, it also explains, up to a certain time, but when the government finally steps in and stops polygamy and shuts the Mormons down, that there was tons of blacks that kept entering into the Mormon religion, moving out to Utah. That's where that one letter came from that eventually becomes the song "I Am a Mormon Coon," where they were being accepted into the Mormon faith, and it was the Mormons were doing this. It seems as if to get a part in the inheritance by their daughters sleeping with the Negroes, or their husbands sleeping with the Negro Indians. Then they were sharing in the blood, they were mixing their seed, and then they were getting a part of the inheritance of the Hebrews. But it seems as if when it finally came down that these people have really been cut off from their protector, their creator, then it was like open season. And like I said, around the 1800s, something weird. It's like everywhere you look, that's when all of it came down. I don't know when the Jim Crow came out, but it just seems like around that time, that's when everything started turning on the Negro population here in North America, and maybe all over the world at that time. I already know it was harsh from before, but it just seems like something else changed around the 1800s.
1878. Before June 8th, 1978, a black Mormon could enter a Mormon temple for only one reason: to be sealed as a servant to a white Mormon, so that the black Mormon could become an eternal servant to the white Mormon god or goddess in the eternities.
You hear that? Did you hear that? He said the only reason you could enter into their temples was to be sealed, to become their servant in the now and the forever after. And I believe they did that through baptism.
Needless to say, only one black Mormon woman I know of ever did this. She was sealed as an eternal servant to Joseph Smith in the 1860s. There have been black Mormons since 1832, but not many of them. At first, they had full equality in the Mormon Church, but in 1848, Brigham Young banned them from the Mormon priesthood, which every Mormon male over the age of 12 holds, and from the Mormon temples. A Mormon cannot be married for all eternity, nor become a god or god.
That's weird. Interesting. I know that they both are Negroes, but she looks more Native American than he does. Look at her cheeks. See that? And look at her chin. See what I'm saying? And look at him. I don't know. I just thought that was weird. It's just I should keep playing, keep my mouth shut. But I just thought that was, oh man, she just, and her hair.
Goddess until they are sealed in a Mormon temple and remain faithful to the Mormon church leaders until the end of their lives. In 1848, Brigham Young introduced the Curse of Cain doctrine into the Mormon church.
See, there it is, 1848. He introduced the Curse of Cain. So what was the Curse of Cain before then? Who was teaching the Curse of Cain before then? And that's what I was thinking about. That's what I was trying to think of. What happened in the 1800s where it really took off? And you got to ask yourself, where did they get this whole Curse of Cain thing? Did they really sit around and look for any way to come up with a way to start discriminating hardcore? And this was finally it, you know? I mean, you could almost see it from that book, Mormons, Coons and Religion, that the government was upset because of so many blacks were intermarrying, and then they were producing, their offspring were more Negro than they were Caucasian or of the other races. So they were, in a way, they knew that they were going to lose the government that they set up. They were going to lose the land that they set up, because the Negro back then was far more educated than he is now. He was far more into politics than he is now. And if they keep producing children that take more after their father than the mother, then the white race was going extinct. You see what I'm saying? And that's even something that I've noticed about today. And I keep my mouth shut about this, but 2 years ago, I was listening to NPR News, and I was coming into work, and they had that guy on there who calls himself Big Country, and he was going around to universities before Donald Trump was, even in the running, but went around and started, really rallying for somebody that would come along and change and speak for the white voice, and the white voice that said it's not being spoken for. And he started talking about how they need to split up this country, how the whites need to take the South, how blacks only need a few states in the North, like Michigan, Minnesota, some of the colder places. That's where he was really basically saying he wanted to put all blacks to separate the states, that the Mexicans need to go back to Mexico, and that any other population could have California, Oregon, and Washington State. That's it. But the rest of it was all going to be given back to the South. The blacks were up in the few places in the North. And there was a Black Panther that he was doing this interview with, and he said, yeah, he actually agreed with them. They could shake hands on that they needed separation, that all blacks need to be in one place, all whites need to be in one place, get the Mexicans out of here, and any other ones could all have, that part of the West Coast. And I thought about this too. He said something, they said in the end, though, if there was anybody that mixed their race, they both could agree there was a place for both of them. The male that mixed his race and the female that mixed theirs, whether it be white, black, or whatever, they both deserved to have bullet holes in the back of their head and end up dead in a ditch somewhere. Both the Panther said that, and this guy from who called himself Big Country, you could almost see the setup, what led into now here in 2016, that mindset. And it's the same mindset this cat has. But I was thinking about that just the other day.
This Curse of Cain doctrine was preached by Mormon leaders from 1848 until June.
So basically what they're saying too is Joseph Smith wouldn't have preached the Curse of Cain doctrine. The founder of the Mormon religion, Brigham Young, comes along and teaches it, right? Look at those black eyes. What are you, a demon?
In 1978, over a period of 130 years. The Mormon leaders have never repudiated the Curse of Cain doctrine, nor issued an apology for it. I'll give you a brief overview of the Curse of Cain doctrine. According to the curse of Cain doctrine, all humans were spirit sons and daughters of God in the pre-existence, also called the pre-earth life or the pre-mortal realm. You and I were there as spirits, according to Mormon doctrine. So was Heavenly Father and his wives, and first son Jesus. Jesus and Lucifer, God's second-born son, got into an argument, and a war broke out. 2/3 of the spirit children followed Jesus, and 1/3 of the spirit children followed Lucifer. Mormons see Jesus as the firstborn son of Elohim, our Heavenly Father, and one of Elohim's goddess wives. They believe that Jesus is the exact physical image of God the Father, meaning a white man with red hair, blue eyes.
Meaning they've never read the book of Daniel, right? They've also have never read, what is it, Isaiah? No, it wasn't Isaiah. Revelation. I know they give it an image of somewhat of an image, but they've never read it apparently. I know Daniel for sure, where the Holy One sits on the throne.
And freckles. 1/3 of the spirits followed Lucifer, the second-born son of God. Mormons don't draw paintings of him, but in Mormon temples before 1950, the devil was said to be black. But in 1950, that was removed from the Mormon temple ceremony. In 1990, many more changes were made. Jesus and the spirits who followed him won the war in heaven and cast out those spirits who followed Lucifer. Those spirits who followed Lucifer became the demons that wander the earth. Those spirits who followed Jesus in the war in heaven became human beings, us. Early Mormon leaders taught that those most valiant in the war in heaven, the most heroic spirits, were born as white babies in the image of God, since Mormons believe that God and Jesus are white men. The Mormon Church always taught that Adam and Eve were two white people because they were created in the image of God, whom Mormons believe is an exalted white man who lived on a planet before this one. Adam and Eve had many sons and daughters, and all of them were white, like Adam and Eve. But how did the black race begin? The Mormon Church had an answer for that as well. Mormon prophets taught that Cain was originally white like his parents, although less valiant in the war in heaven, but he was allowed to come to earth and be born, because God wanted the less valiant spirits to come to earth too, but he would mark them with a mark. Cain couldn't have the priesthood, but he wanted the priesthood, and was jealous of his brother Abel, who had the priesthood, so Cain killed Abel. God saw that he killed his brother Abel, so God sent a curse upon Cain, which meant he would wander the earth, and also the ground would not yield its fruit to him. Furthermore, God would ban Cain and all the descendants of Cain from the priesthood until all of Abel's children first had the opportunity to hold the priesthood. God cursed Cain and put a mark upon him.
Anybody know what's up with that? Anybody know what's up with that? Here you are making fun of, what, Negroes? Ones you calling coons? Which, I mean, I myself, coon just means, to me, indigenous person. And I'm going off of what the British called the blacks of Australia. When they went to Australia, the same British people that left for America, that came from England, that left for America, the other ones that were sent to Australia, met black people there, and the word coon from England for blacks meant aboriginal. So when they seen the blacks folks there, they called them coons, meaning aboriginal. Here they tell you that it means somebody that sings and dances. Well, when we get into that, then we got to find out, why did they list them as people that sang and danced? Well, then they tell us that, well, coon relates back to buffoon. Not the baboon, buffoon. And buffoon meant somebody that sang and danced because they were broke and homeless and they were looking for work. They were a vagabond in the Spanish. They were a vagrant in the French. The Indians of America were called vagrants and vagabonds, and they were put to work forcefully.
According to the Curse of Cain doctrine taught by Mormon church leaders for 130 years, Cain was changed by God from a white man into the world's first Negro. Cain then married his sister. There were no other women around, and God changed her into the world's second Negro. Cain and his sister became the parents of the black African or so-called Negro race. This was taught by the very highest Mormon leaders for 130 years, from 1848 to 1978. This was called the Curse of Cain doctrine. Brigham Young, the second president of the Mormon Church,
Brigham Young got that university with BYU out in Utah.
and the man who first preached the Curse of Cain doctrine, declared over the
I wonder how many of our people that go out there and play football for this university even know that that's what used to be taught about them. Probably none, because the Mormons can be very fake right to your face.
pulpit that Negroes were the children of Cain, and that the mark of Cain was a black skin, a flat nose, and kinky hair. Let me quote from Brigham Young himself. Cain slew his brother. Cain might have been killed, and that would have put a termination to that line of human beings. This was not to be, and the Lord put a mark on him, which is the flat nose and black skin. Trace mankind down to after the flood.
Now hold on, I'm gonna show you something in another video that whole flat nose thing. Well, if they like to claim that the so-called Jew, whatever, is also Caucasian or whatever they claim that they are, whatever you want, Khazarian, whatever you want to call them. I got the verse from the Old Testament that explains and claims that yes, even the Levites could have flat noses. Now, they could not be those that ministered to the Creator. They could be of the tribe of Levi, but if they could not go into the Holy of Holies and participate in the priesthood because they were considered to have a blemish. But it didn't say that they couldn't grow them. I mean, couldn't have a flat nose and been born with one. I'll explain it later on. Sorry.
And then another curse is pronounced upon that same race, that they should be the servants of servants, and they will be until that curse is removed. End quote. Brigham Young, Journal of Discourses, Volume 7, page 290. Not only did Brigham Young ban all black Mormons from the priesthood and temples, he also banned interracial couples from getting married under penalty of death. Let me quote him. Quote, "Shall I tell you the law of God in regard to the..."
Do you see this? Hold on.
African race? If the white man who belongs to the chosen seed mixes his...
Because when I see that, I think about like what the Russian term for white is actually the so-called Negro, and the Russian term for black was the so-called white man, and now it's been changed. So technically, they're saying that this dude shouldn't be having anything to do with her, or the other way around. You know what I'm trying to say? You know what I'm saying? Like this is so messed up because the white man is technically the African, and it's not the other way around.
Blood with the seed of Cain, the penalty under the law of God is death on the spot. This will always be so. End quote. Brigham Young, Journal of Discourses, Volume 10, page 110. At least one black Mormon had his throat cut from ear to ear in Salt Lake City in 1866.
Ear to ear, that's that whole Freemason thing. You know what I'm talking about? We all know that, what's his name, Joseph Smith was, in fact, a 33rd degree Freemason. Basically just a student of the Kabbalah given to them by the Catholic Church.
Allegedly for trying to marry a white woman. His name was Thomas Coleman. Around his neck was found a sign which read, "Niggers should leave white women alone."
I'm very proud of my faith. And
Yes,
it's the
you
faith
are,
of my
aren't you?
fathers. And I certainly believe that it is a faith, well, it's true, and I love my faith. And I'm not going to distance myself in any way from my faith.
The question is, do you believe it's a sin for a white man to marry and procreate with a black?
No. Next question.
The successor of Brigham Young was John Taylor. He was the third president of the Mormon Church. He continued to preach that black people were the cursed children of Cain, and he continued to ban them from the priesthood and temples. This is what he had to say about black people. And after the flood, we are told that the curse that had been pronounced upon Cain was continued through Ham's wife, as he had married a wife of that seed. And why did it pass through the flood? Because it was necessary that the devil should have a representation upon the earth as well as God. End quote. Journal of Discourses, Volume 22, page 304. Joseph Fielding Smith was interviewed by reporters for Look magazine in 1963 and asked about blacks in the church and if the Mormon church would always ban blacks from its priesthood and temples. Joseph Fielding Smith replied, quote, "Darkies are wonderful people, and there is a place for them in our church." End quote. Joseph Fielding Smith, Look magazine, October 27, 1963, page 79. Indeed, there was a place for blacks in the Mormon church before 1978, as eternal servants to white Mormon gods and goddesses.
You know, I was looking over that cartoon. What's it called? Sambo and the tiger. I thought it was interesting because it was a little out of place. Like they have a tiger and is chasing after the young boy, and his mother's just like this, right? But yet, aren't tigers only found in India? Just like something. I don't know. My mind never could comprehend how they could put a cartoon together like that. Unless they're saying that back in the day it was accepted that the Negro was out of India and not Africa? I don't know. Weird. Whatever.
Needless to say, very few blacks joined the Mormon church during the priesthood and temple ban era, which lasted from 1848 until June 8, 1978. Governor Romney, why did you serve a Mormon mission in France during the time the Mormon church banned blacks and taught that blacks were the cursed and inferior children of Cain, only fit to be, at best, eternal servants of white Mormons in heaven? Mitt Romney has repeatedly been asked if he agrees with the curse of Cain doctrine or if he thought that the priesthood ban against blacks in the church was wrong or a mistake. Mitt has always refused to answer, saying he was there to speak about politics and not his religion. He wisely avoids the question. On June 8, 1978, Mormon Church President Spencer W. Kimball ended the priesthood and temple ban on black Mormons, although he did not even mention the curse of Cain doctrine. This announcement that the 130-year-old priesthood and temple ban on blacks had ended is called Official Declaration 2, or the 1978 Revelation, although it is not a revelation, but merely a statement ending the priesthood and temple ban. Brigham Young taught that blacks would not get the priesthood until after the millennium was over. Why then did Church President Spencer W. Kimball ignore that and get rid of the priesthood ban in 1978? The answer is simple. Because President Jimmy Carter, the President of the United States in 1978, told Mormon Church President Spencer W. Kimball that the Mormon Church had to end its 130-year discrimination against black Mormons, or the federal government would end the church's tax-exempt status. You see, along with being a church, the Mormon Church is also a corporation that owns hundreds of companies, millions of acres of land, thousands of buildings, and takes in about $11 billion per year from tithing and from the profit of church businesses which are not taxed a dime. If the church's tax-exempt status was removed because of the priesthood and temple ban, then the Mormon Church would have lost billions of dollars a year from untaxed tithing and untaxed businesses. That tithing money and those businesses would have been taxed, and the Mormon Church would have lost billions each and every year. To prevent that from happening, something had to be done. But wait a minute. What about the curse of Cain doctrine? The 1978 revelation by Mormon President Spencer W. Kimball said nothing about the curse of Cain doctrine. Has the Mormon Church ever apologized for it? Nope. Has the Mormon Church ever issued a repudiation of the curse of Cain doctrine? Afraid not. The Mormon Church has never issued an apology or public repudiation of the curse of Cain doctrine, which its leaders taught as a doctrine of the church for 130 years. That's right, the Mormon Church, via its public affairs department, now denies that the church ever taught the curse of Cain doctrine. They are calling it some folklore which some members believed, but was never a doctrine of the church. We would like to...
Well, now we actually have references, thanks to this author, from where we can see that they actually did, yes, indeed, even preach to this in their sermons. And we have references, like I said, we can look up and print them off so we can put them in, I print them off and put them in my folder so I can have that stuff for myself, proving that, yeah, you did teach that, yeah, you did say that, whether you get rid of your books or your references yourself, we got it, whatever, we got it.
To see the Mormon Church make a public apology for the Curse of Cain doctrine, admit that they taught it as a doctrine of the church for 130 years. On Australian television in 1997, Church President Gordon B. Hinckley was asked why the church banned blacks from its priesthood and temples for 130 years. President Hinckley replied, quote, "I don't know what the reason for that was." End quote. Compass TV program aired November 1997, Australian Broadcasting System. The younger generation of Mormons are not racist at all, but they are being lied to by their leaders. They are being taught that the Mormon Church just doesn't know the reason why it banned blacks for 130 years. They are told nothing about the Curse of Cain doctrine. We hope that the journalists will have the courage to ask Governor Romney if he will issue a public statement regarding the Curse of Cain doctrine or not. To date, Romney refuses to answer, changes the subject, and the journalists always fail to get him to answer any Curse of Cain questions. The news media must keep asking and keep demanding an answer. Governor Romney, will you issue a public statement which clearly and unequivocally repudiates the racist Curse of Cain doctrine and the racist priesthood ban policy which your church taught and instituted for 130 years? Let your friends know about this video. Leave your comments in the comment box below. We'd love to read them. If you want to know more about the history of racism and the Curse of Cain doctrine in the Mormon Church, then go online to the following websites: blackmormons.webs.com. We hope that any journalist watching this video will want to start asking Governor Romney about the Curse of Cain issue. Will he issue a public statement repudiating it, or will he continue to remain silent on the issue? If you don't ask him, then nobody will. Also, don't forget to vote in November for the candidate you think will best represent all of the American people.
No. You there, my friend, are the cousin of George Bush, and we all know the Bush family is fathered by none other than Aleister Crowley. Yeah, you guys got a lot of, and the fact that you claim to be the first African American president, that's just shameful. That really is, my friend.
In this election, every vote will count.
We know there was presidents before Washington, and they just so happen to be truly Americans, Negro Americans.
Thank you for your time.
All right, so check this out. That's the other thing I wanted to show you, all right? There is, I was looking up stuff about Samuel Seawright and the four Mohawk kings, and I came back to his Wikipedia page and I started reading what he had to say about the Ethiopians again, right? And just started dibbling around, and I'm not even sure how I found this. You can see I have all these tablets open where I just kept looking up other things, and it led me to this, this Mormon website, and oh yeah, that's what it was, because this on here they also have the view of the Hebrews. So I was looking up Ethiopians, because Samuel Seawright describes, the people in the Americas looking as the Ethiopians, black as the Ethiopians. Even though Wikipedia has changed it now, he's the section that you'll find them talking about the Ethiopians. They actually start out talking about Native American this and this and this, and then they start talking about, he also felt this way about minority groups, and brings up, the blacks that were looking like the Ethiopians. But the way they have it fit in now, it doesn't even make sense. Like the way it's written, it doesn't seem to make sense at all. But I want to read this title here: the Evening and Morning Star, 217. And look at this right here. the prophet continues. It says that the Ethiopians also shall be slain with the sword of the Lord, and that he will. And when you look at this, when you read this, it's about Missouri. And I've had these conversations with Arthur Scott Jr. What is in the state of Missouri that they have always seemed to want to keep our people out of there? They want that land, and it's to this day, it's very backwoods. It's very, and it's not even the clan though. That was the thing I was talking to Arthur about. It's not the clans. It's the Mormons. It's the not just the Mormons, but these other small time, like what else people called there, the Amish and people like that. But yet when I talk to white people that live there, they still tell you, no, it's really backwoods. It's still backwards. We've seen what happened with the University of Missouri and the kid having to starve himself out just so they can get rid of the president because they weren't going to do anything about the racist acts that were going on. But you got to read this article. This article here talks all about chasing people off, and when I'm reading it, I can't help but think about kind of the Klansman mentality. But the thing is weird because this is the Mormons, right? But we now know that also the Mormons were against everything. They were like partners with the Klan in a way, and they were against everything about us. It talks about chasing off the father, coming to their houses in the middle of the night, and terrorizing them, raping the women, destroying them, it claims, making the women and children flee to the forest and to the trees, so just read this, all right, if you get a chance. And just read all this. It gets really graphic, but it's basically from their point of view. I haven't even finished. I actually got down to this part. I need to finish up here. But just this section alone in the beginning about Jackson, Missouri, was enough for me to just be like, wait a minute, am I reading about the Klan or am I reading or not, And then I got to remember, we already have a taste of it. The Mormons hated us and just as much as they did. They believed in enslaving us just as much as they did. They even tell you they enslaved us to make us farmers because it was the only way to make us civil, man, it's just all. I'm gonna leave this in the description box, for you to check out. All right, so it's MW Smith, and thanks for watching. Have a good day, everyone.